My boss publicly shamed me, so I stole his biggest clients. The entire boardroom went dead silent. My boss, Richard, with this smug, self-satisfied look on his face, had just pointed a finger straight at me and called me the single biggest disappointment he had ever hired. In front of the whole executive team, he called my work on our biggest project a catastrophic failure of imagination. He leaned back in his big leather chair, like a king talking to a court jester, just soaking in the heavy, suffocating silence. He thought he was breaking me. He thought this public execution of my career would make me crawl back to my desk, defeated. He had no idea he wasn't just lighting a match. He was lighting the fuse to his own professional demise. This wasn't going to be a story about angry emails or me storming out. No, my revenge would be quiet, methodical, and absolutely brilliant. Let's rewind a bit. Before that moment, I wasn't just another employee. By all accounts, I was the golden child of the marketing department. For 5 years, I was the top performer at our tech firm. I wasn't just hitting targets, I was setting new ones. I was the one who landed the Sterling Corp account when everyone said it was impossible. I came up with the evergreen campaign that literally doubled our market share. My name was on every award the company had won for creative strategy in the last 3 years. Richard, my boss, mostly climbed the ladder by taking credit for his team's work, and I was his prize horse. He'd present my slide decks as his own and casually drop phrases I'd carefully crafted in board meetings, reaping the bonuses that came with them. I put up with it like a lot of us do because I genuinely loved the work. I guess I naively believed that competence would eventually win out. The project he used as a weapon against me was codenamed Project Nova. It was a huge rebranding for our biggest client, Innovate Inc. They were losing business to younger startups and needed a lifeline. Richard had dismissed the project from the start, calling them a dinosaur looking for a facelift. He handed the whole thing to me with a wave and said, "Just make them feel relevant. Don't waste too much time on it." But I saw the potential. For the next 3 months, I lived and breathed Innovate Inc. I'm talking 80-hour weeks. I spent weekends at their headquarters talking not just to executives, but to their engineers and customer service reps. I didn't just analyze their market position, I analyzed their soul. The strategy one came up with was ambitious. It wasn't just a new logo. It was a complete shift in their story, focusing on their core strengths of security and reliability. It was complex, data-driven, and, I thought, revolutionary. I showed it to Richard a week before the big quarterly meeting. He barely looked up from his phone. He skimmed the first page, grunted, and said, "Looks fine. A bit overcooked if you ask me. They won't get it. But whatever. It's your funeral." He didn't read the analysis or look at the detailed rollout plan. Then came the meeting. Richard was supposed to present the quarter's big wins. He went through a few small ones before getting to Project Nova. And then he dropped the bomb. "And now," he said, his voice dripping with fake disappointment, "we come to Project Nova, an account I had high hopes for, which has unfortunately turned into a cautionary tale." He then systematically tore my strategy apart, twisting my identified strengths into weaknesses. He called my deep research a waste of billable hours, and the new narrative confusing to the market. He finished his character assassination by pointing right at me and delivering that line about me being a failure. The reason for the betrayal became clear later. He was up for a promotion to VP, and the CEO doubted his strategic skills. He needed a scapegoat to look like a tough leader, and he chose me. That walk back to my desk was the longest walk of my life. The normally buzzing office felt like a vacuum. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, a mix of pity and morbid curiosity. My own team couldn't even look at me. The humiliation was a physical thing, this hot flush spreading across my chest and face. And the anger was a cold, hard knot in my stomach. My first instinct was pure rage. I wanted to storm back in there. I wanted to quit in a blaze of glory, sending a company-wide email detailing every single idea Richard had stolen from me. I dreamed of forwarding my original Project Nova proposal to the entire board, with Richard's dismissive email attached. I wanted to watch him burn. But as I sat there in my chair, with the buzz of the fluorescent lights suddenly sounding very loud, something else took over. A strange, chilling calm. The anger didn't vanish, but it changed. It cooled down, got solid, and sharpened into one clear thought. An outburst is exactly what he expects. It would just prove his point that I'm emotional and unprofessional. He would win. He attacked my competence. The best revenge wouldn't be to argue with him. It would be to prove him wrong with results. He never valued relationships. He saw clients as numbers on a spreadsheet. He never remembered the names of their kids, their hobbies, or the little operational problems they'd mention on calls. But I did. That was my strength. He thought he was king of the castle, but he had no idea its very foundations were made of relationships I had personally built. And that's when the plan started to form. It was brutally simple. I wasn't going to steal anything. I wasn't going to sabotage him. I was going to make myself completely indispensable to our most valuable clients. The revenge wouldn't be loud. It would be a quiet, methodical transfer of loyalty. By the time he noticed, it would be far too late. He had shamed me. I wasn't going to get even. I was going to get strategic. First thing I did? I made a spreadsheet. Not a list of complaints, it was a battle plan. I listed our top 10 clients, the ones bringing in about 80% of our revenue. For each one, I made columns: key contact, personal details, primary pain point, and Richard's weakness. While Richard was schmoozing with CEOs on golf courses, I was in the trenches with the VPs and marketing directors, the people who actually made the decisions. I knew the director at Sterling Corp was a massive Formula One fan. I knew the VP at Nexus Dynamics was struggling with a buggy analytics tool our company had ignored. And I knew the head of strategy at Innovate Incorporated, the client from Project Nova, felt totally ignored by our senior leadership. Richard's weakness was always the same: neglect. He thought a signed contract was the finish line. My strategy was simple. I would do the follow-through he never did. I started with Nexus Dynamics. The VP, Sarah, had been complaining for months about their analytics tool. Richard's official stance was, "Not our problem." I spent my own weekend creating a user-friendly guide with custom dashboards and workarounds. On Monday, I emailed it to her from my personal account with a simple note: "Hi Sarah, I know this has been a source of frustration. I put a few things together over the weekend that might help your team." An hour later, my personal cell rang. She was floored. "My team has been struggling with this for 6 months," she said. "I've sent a dozen emails to Richard that went unanswered. Thank you." From that day on, Sarah never emailed Richard again. She called me. Directly. For everything. One client down. Next up was Sterling Corp. The marketing director, Mark, was obsessed with Formula One. Richard knew this and would send him a generic article sometimes. It was lazy. I didn't just talk about the races. I found a rare, out-of-print book on the engineering of 1970s Ferrari engines, a topic he was passionate about. I bought it and had it couriered to his office with a handwritten note. It wasn't about the money, it was the attention to detail. The next time we had a call with Richard on the line, Mark spent the first 20 minutes gushing about the book. Richard was completely lost. 2 clients down. My biggest challenge and the sweetest victory would be innovating. Richard had officially taken me off the account. But the head of strategy, Adira, hadn't forgotten me. I sent her a quiet email: "Adira, I was sorry to hear how the presentation went. I still believe deeply in the direction we discussed. If you ever want to chat off the record, you have my number." She replied within a day. We met for coffee. I didn't badmouth Richard. I just walked her through my original strategy again, showing her the research and the interviews with her own staff. I showed her I wasn't just trying to sell her something, I was trying to help her company. Her expression grew grim. "He didn't show us any of this," she said. "He presented a watered-down version and told us your ideas were unfeasible. He made you sound like an overeager junior." She stirred her coffee. "We pay your firm 7 figures a year for a strategic partner, and all we have is an account manager who doesn't return calls." This went on for 6 months. It was a slow, methodical process of earning trust where Richard had sown neglect. I became their problem solver, their real partner. All the while in the office, I was the model employee: quiet, efficient, never complaining. Richard saw my new attitude as proof he'd put me in my place. He had no clue he was a king ruling an empty kingdom. The final pieces were falling into place. My relationships were solid, the client's loyalty was with me, and Richard was blissfully unaware, floating on a cloud of his own arrogance. I was ready to make my move. But the confrontation, the moment when all this quiet planning would finally erupt, was more satisfying than I could have ever imagined. If you want to see how 6 months of strategic patience brought a corporate tyrant to his knees, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe because you don't want to miss the fallout. The trigger came on a Tuesday morning. The company announced Richard's promotion. He was now the vice president of marketing. His ego, already massive, swelled to the size of a planet. He called a department meeting, which was really just a victory lap. He strutted around, pontificating about his new vision, and ended with a jab aimed right at me. We will no longer tolerate projects that are overcooked and out of touch, he announced, smirking my way. From now on, we are about lean, decisive action. That was it. That was my cue. I waited for the applause to die down. Then I quietly raised my hand. A ripple of confusion went through the room. I never spoke in these meetings anymore. Richard's smirk faltered. Yes? He asked, his voice dripping with condescension. Something to add? I stood up, holding a plain white envelope. Yes, Richard, I do, I said, my voice perfectly calm. First, congratulations on the promotion. It's well deserved. I let that hang in the air. Second, I'd like to tender my resignation, effective immediately. A collective gasp sucked the air out of the room. Richard was stunned silent. His face went from smug to confused to furious in about 3 seconds. You're what? He stammered. You can't just quit. You have responsibilities. I placed the envelope on the table. My responsibilities are handled, I said. And as for my projects, I'm sure someone with your new vision for lean, decisive action will have no trouble. He tried to recover. This is incredibly unprofessional, he sputtered. You'll never work in this industry again. I almost smiled. I think you'll find my future prospects are quite secure, I replied. And with that, I turned and walked out, leaving a stunned silence behind me. I didn't go back to my desk. I'd been clearing it out for weeks. I walked straight to the elevator. The first part of the plan was done. The second was about to begin. I went to a coffee shop across the street, opened my laptop, and went to my personal email. In my drafts were 3 emails, one for each of our top 3 clients: Sterling Corp, Nexus Dynamics, and Innovate Inc. They were simple and professional, just informing them that I had resigned. I hit send on all 3. Then I ordered a coffee and waited. It took less than 15 minutes. My phone buzzed. It was Sarah from Nexus Dynamics. You left? She asked, no preamble. What happened? You can't leave. You're the only one who gets our business. It was time for a change, Sarah, I said calmly. Well, if you're changing, so are we, she said firmly. We have a 90-day termination clause. Consider this our verbal notice. Wherever you land, we're coming with you. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mark at Sterling Corp. Call me. We need to talk about our contract. And then the big one. An email from Adira at Innovate Inc. The subject, following suit. The email was 1 sentence. As per our conversation, Innovate Incorporated will be terminating our contract, effective immediately, citing a failure to provide the strategic partnership promised. Let me know when you are ready to discuss next steps. We believe in your vision. Back in the office, chaos was erupting. According to a former colleague who was texting me a play-by-play, the real panic started about 20 minutes later, when the first termination notice hit the CEO's inbox. It was from Nexus Dynamics. The CEO, Mr. Henderson, stormed into Richard's new office demanding to know what was going on. Richard apparently was dismissive. It's just one client, he reportedly said. And it's because that disgruntled employee quit. Then the second email arrived. Sterling Corp. And then the third. Innovate Inc. Together, those 3 clients represented over 65% of the company's annual billings. The story I heard is that Mr. Henderson just stared at Richard, his face turning white. He didn't yell. He just said in a deathly quiet voice, "What did you do?" Richard tried to blame me, claiming I had poached the clients. But their termination letters told a different story. They didn't mention me by name. They mentioned a lack of senior engagement, unanswered support requests, and a fundamental disconnect with our strategic needs. They were listing Richard's own failures. The shadow file I'd built, which I anonymously forwarded to the CEO from a throwaway email right after I quit, gave him all the proof he needed. The final nail in the coffin was the full Project Nova proposal, which Adira from Innovate Incorporated forwarded to the CEO herself, with a note that said, "This is the partnership we were paying for. It's a shame your team didn't see the value in it." Richard was fired by the end of the day. Not just demoted, terminated for gross negligence. His reign as vice president lasted less than 3 hours. I took 2 weeks off. I went to the beach and turned off my phone. When I came back, I opened my own consulting firm. My first 3 clients were Sterling Corp, Nexus Dynamics, and Innovate Inc. They signed contracts that were, in total, 20% more than what they'd been paying my old firm. Within a year, I hired 2 of my best former colleagues and we picked up 5 more major clients. My victory wasn't just about getting even. It was a quiet, devastating testament to a simple truth. competence is the best revenge. In the end, Richard didn't just shame me, he liberated me. He taught me a valuable lesson. When someone tries to bury you, they don't realize they're just planting a seed. My success wasn't built on spite, but on the principles he ignored: respect, diligence, and genuine connection. I didn't burn a bridge, I just walked across it to build something new and stronger on the other side. My revenge wasn't a single act, but the slow, patient process of proving my worth, not to him but to the people who actually mattered. And that has made all the difference. What about you? Have you ever had a boss who took credit for your work or tried to tear you down? What did you do? Share your stories of workplace justice in the comments below. Let's talk about it. And thank you for watching.